It's episode 5 of the Toadstool Boardroom for the week of June 29th, 2022. I'm Logan Plant, joined today by Odell Harmon Jr.
Hey, hey, everybody.
Chris Shriver's not with us. He's out hunting ghosts in a mansion, I last heard, but he'll hopefully be back next week. But we've got a big show ahead. We are going to talk about the Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase for the bulk of our program today. So let's get right into it with some of the biggest announcements. First off, it leaked right before the presentation, but Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope is coming out on October 20th. There's going to be a gold edition coming, as with every Ubisoft game there is. That's going to include upcoming DLC packs, including additional story content. And if you remember, the first Mario plus Rabbids got that Donkey Kong expansion that Odell tells me is really good.
Really good.
It also got its own presentation Wednesday morning, the day we're recording, about 15 minutes, more gameplay shown off, a couple characters shown off. The game looks like there's some more free exploration, overworld puzzles. Bowser's a party member, which I find super exciting. I feel like every game where he's playable has turned out pretty well. And there's more freedom of movement around the battlefield before taking your turn. I have not finished the first Mario plus Rabbids. I need to before this one comes out. And Odell, you were telling me that I should go back and finish it too.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It's one of those games. I never thought Mario plus Rabbids was going to be a bad game when I first saw it. I was super excited that Nintendo was giving the reins to Mario to someone else to do something fun and wacky. But it was a great game, and I did not expect that. It was a game that I was excited about the DLC. I really wish they had an online multiplayer component where you could like battle real people, but it was real basic. That's something we talked about on the show when it comes to Nintendo's online offerings. And sadly, no one I knew had the game or played it to completion because I wanted to have battles with people. That's how much I enjoyed the game.
So what'd you think of what we saw so far from Sparks of Hope?
I'm excited because, the big thing they're talking about is they've gotten rid of the grid. There's no more grid. That's free-flowing movement. And since I played the original, I'm like, did you get rid of the grid, or did you just make it look like it's not a grid and you're just kind of running around, but you're still locked into the same spaces you are? And I'm not really convinced yet. Like, I need to see more. Like, I'm taking them at their word. But comparing it to the first one, it's like, because you run and tackle the people and you do stuff. You could do that in the first one, but that was locked into your limited line of movement. So I'm curious to see how free, quote unquote, this new battle style is. But it is drastically different just from what we've seen so far compared to the original, which I think is a bold move, honestly.
I think it's looking great. I love the Super Mario Galaxy influence that this game is just dripping with. I mean, you've got the sparks are make of it what you will, a very strange combination of Lumas and Rabbids. They look kind of freaky, but it's funny. And then there's actually going to be different planets you travel to in this game. There's star bits that you saw Mario shaking out of trees. There's Rabbid Rosalina is a new party member. So I think it's pretty cool that over a decade after the last Galaxy project, Super Mario Galaxy 2, we're seeing a big return kind of to this world in this sequel. So I'm a big fan of that. And then, like I said, Bowser is a party member. Bowser's Inside Story is great. Super Mario RPG is great. I love it when Bowser takes center stage, teams up with Mario for whatever reason, and I'm really looking forward to having like a heavy-hitting character like him in the party.
Hey, most definitely. I mean, Super Mario RPG, Bowser was a playable character. That's a great game. Bowser's Inside Story, Bowser was a playable character. Great game. So, Mario RPGs and Bowser's go together well. I'm also really excited about the new character. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she has the Buster-like sword. And I'm like, she's a rabbit version. Yeah. I'm like, is this a OG, like a OC, or is it a rabbit version of a character from the Mushroom Kingdom we just can't see yet? I'm real curious where this is going.
Yeah. Edge is the name.
Edge, there we go.
Holds a really huge sword, is a new party member. I think it's fun to have a rabbit that's not just Mario or Luigi or Peach or Rosalina. But maybe it is someone. Maybe it's some deep cut we aren't putting together. Maybe it's Rabbid Waluigi. I just can't tell. But yeah, this is interesting. I watched the specific showcase for this game this morning. It was 15 minutes. It was put on by Ubisoft, not by Nintendo. And you can just tell this is like a big project for Nintendo, a big partnership with Ubisoft. Shinya Takahashi, who you may know as the one of the guys who hosts pretty much every Nintendo Direct the last few years. He was in the Ubisoft presentation. He showed up basically to just say, hey, we're really excited about the next Mario Rabbids project, excited that it's coming out this year, and we think it's going to be a great like expansion in the world of Mario. And to me, that just seemed like a big deal. Not only have they handed the reins of their most recognizable character over to Ubisoft, but then they have one of their big faces of Nintendo right now show up on the project. That just struck me that they take this game really seriously.
Yeah, continuing what you're saying, what struck me is that this game might as well be like just a huge step for Nintendo. They got Yuko Shinmomura as one of the new composers, and you're wondering, she is the woman who composed the main theme of Kingdom Hearts, along with working on the original Street Fighter 2 music. So I'm like, that is a big get right there to compose your music.
And Grant Kirkhope, known for Donkey Kong Country and the new Donkey Kong Countries, is back for this game also. So yeah, the soundtrack's probably going to be really good.
And please forgive me, I forgot to jot him down my notes, but the third composer they got is the guy behind the music of Ori. And for those who don't know, I love Ori. So I'm just like, so we got Kingdom Hearts, Ori, and Donkey Kong composers all on the same game. That is wild. Like, for all the games Nintendo ignores, they really pulled all the stops out for this one.
Yeah, which kind of leads us into what I want to talk about now, which is I still just find it really hard to believe that this game exists, right? Everybody thought it was a joke and fake when it leaked ahead of E3 2017. But not only did it turn out to be very real, it turned out to be very good enough that it's getting a sequel. And I guess that I was hoping that the original Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle was going to be kind of a launching point for Nintendo to partner with other studios and lend their IP places so we could get cool new projects like this. We've seen a few of them. We've seen the Cadence of Hyrule, Crypt of the Necrodancer plus Zelda. We've seen all the Warriors games, Koei Tecmo partnering with Nintendo to produce Fire Emblem Warriors and Hyrule Warriors. But beyond that, we haven't really seen very much. And so, Odell, I want to ask you, if you could pair one Nintendo franchise and one third-party developer to make a brand new Switch game, what's your pitch for me?
Oh man, brand new, as in with existing IP, or like something we don't know at all, brand new?
With an existing IP.
Oh, okay.
So Mario plus Rabbids, but it's a tactical RPG, or Zelda, but it's a rhythm game, like Crypt of the Necrodancer. And if you don't have one yet, I can go first.
You go first. You go first.
And loaded. This is my dream video game right here.
All right.
I'm a huge F-Zero fan. F-Zero has gone dormant. Who made the last great F-Zero? Sega. What does Sega make now? Yakuza. I want RGG Studio, who makes the Yakuza games, to make the next F-Zero game, which in addition to great racing, like from F-Zero GX, also has you walk around Mute City, like Kamurocho and Yakuza, beating up thugs, getting into fights, doing side quests for people. So Yakuza plus F-Zero, developed by Sega, starring Captain Falcon. You can imagine the moveset in a brawler for Captain Falcon. It would be so good. It's my dream crossover. I know it will not happen, but I want to see F-Zero come back. And I think putting the focus on Captain Falcon in this third-person combat game, plus the racing from F-Zero that everybody loved, I think would just be a phenomenal project.
All right. So here's my extreme deep cut. So the real answer to this is Naughty Dog, but Naughty Dog is not what they used to be.
Okay.
So the new Naughty Dog is basically Toys for Bob.
Yeah.
Because they made the last Crash Bandicoot, correct? And they did a fantastic job. Yeah. Toys for Bob is going to make Banjo-Kazooie 3.
Okay. All right. Not a Nintendo IP, but I still like the call. I still like the call of Microsoft doing that.
My thing is Banjo-Kazooie not a Nintendo IP, though? Like, I feel like that's one of those things where, like, it's not legally, but for all intents and purposes, I feel like it is.
Yeah, I'd like to think that if there was a Banjo game, it could end up on Switch, just like Banjo himself ended up on Switch through Smash and N64 Online. So, yeah, I could see that. I would love to see Banjo come back. And way to pick that for Chris, who is not with us today. But this is going to be our first question of the week, where we want our listeners of the Toadstool Boardroom to weigh in on the questions that we ask. There's two ways you can do it. You can either head to Twitter and go to @ToadstoolBR and just drop a comment there, or email us toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com with your response to this question of what Nintendo franchise and third-party developer would you pair together to make a brand new game for Switch? We got one response so far from Twitter. This is Game Guys Advance, who says, pick your poison, a Waluigi Noir from Capcom's Phoenix Wright team, or a Pokemon game by the Cooking Mama team. Well, I will easily take the Phoenix Wright game. It's about time Waluigi got his own game, don't you think?
I personally think Waluigi is a horrible character, but
that's right.
because the community loves him so much, I'm like, yeah, Nintendo might as well capitalize, right? I might not like him, but it will make a smart move to give him a something. Wario has many franchises under his belt. You know, Waluigi deserves at least one. I'll give the guy a break.
And why not a Noir from Capcom's Ace Attorney team? So kind of a fun exercise, but it comes from a serious idea of we're seeing these series take longer and longer between entries. It's been come next year, if Breath of the Wild 2 finally comes out, it'll have been 6 years since the last 3D Zelda. And that's why Hyrule Warriors is so smart to plug that gap with another studio. And I just think Nintendo could use other franchises to do that. And there's a lot of great developers out there. You've proven your willingness to be more flexible with some of your series. I just think that I want to see them take more of those risks, partnering with more different studios to work on series that maybe they don't care about anymore, like F-Zero. Like, they're not going to do it. Let somebody else do it. Like, Mario plus Rabbids is like the only one right now. And it's like, why is that the only one that we're getting? It's great. I'm glad it exists. But I just think that there's a lot of opportunity there.
All right, you know what? I'll give you one. I will give you one that's more of a Nintendo IP. So, I don't like Pokemon spin-off games, but there is one that I love intensely, and that is Pokemon Conquest. And since we're never gonna get Advance Wars, I need some tactics game that's not Octopath or Triangle, it's just good, clean fun. So give me the next Pokemon Conquest by Supergiant Games.
That is actually a great example of another random crossover they've done in the past. Pokemon plus Nobunaga's Ambition. I never played that game. I really want to, but it's so expensive now.
Really?
So I've never played it. Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta hold on to my copy.
Yeah, don't let it go. It's crazy expensive now. Like over $100 for Pokemon Conquest.
Oh man.
But that's Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope out in October. Big October game. Big exclusive in October for Nintendo Switch. More talking points from Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase. Live Alive demo is out now. This is coming out in just a few weeks. But there's a demo out now where you can play through 3 different eras: Imperial China, the Twilight of Edo Japan, and the Distant Future. Your save does transfer over. There was also a Treehouse segment posted after the show, over a half hour of gameplay for Live Alive. So they're starting to push this as the next big game. It's coming out right around Xenoblade, like a week before. But demo out now. What do you think, O'Dell?
Day one purchase, easy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very excited for this one. We'll be talking about it on the show quite a lot in just a few weeks. Big announcement that they closed the show with that didn't quite feel like a capper for a reason we'll get into. And this is Persona 5 Royal, Persona 4, and Persona 3 Portable are all coming to Switch, just like they're coming to Xbox, which we learned about 3 weeks ago. P5R is coming on October 21st, and it is getting a physical edition. So finally, people can calm down about Persona coming to Switch. It's finally happening. But O'Dell, I just thought it was a strange thing maybe to end the show with, given that the exact same trailer basically aired 3 weeks ago at the Xbox showcase. So it's like they're kind of just piggybacking off of that hype to me.
Yeah, I definitely thought that was weird. It's, you know, with the exception of Persona 5 Royal, I feel like the other two were made for Switch because, you know, they're quote unquote, you know, best edition were handheld versions of the game. And so, you know, people been wanting them on Switch forever. But yeah, it would have been a great show opener. It's like, well, this isn't new news since, you know, it's coming to Xbox. Like, it's here. You get hype. I was really surprised about 5. I mean, I guess that could have been big news. I didn't think... Mm-hmm. I mean, Persona doesn't ask the game to do anything super hardcore graphically or, you know, processing all that. So it's not improbable that it's on there, especially since Doom was on there. But I found that surprising. But yeah, it was more of just... And the trailer itself wasn't even like a big trailer. It was like, here's a trailer with like info board.
Yeah. Yeah, and Persona 5, remember, did start life as a PlayStation 3 game, not Royal. Royal was never on PS3, but the original Persona 5 was. So I think it'll be fine on Switch. It'll obviously be a downgrade, but I think it will be serviceable for sure. Exciting for all those fans that it's coming here, but for me, it was just another sign of, I thought, strange pacing throughout this direct. You opened with 4 minutes of Monster Hunter Sunbreak, which I'm very excited for. Comes out the day this show drops on the 30th, and I'm going to be playing it a lot of this weekend. But we've already seen so much of that game, and it's coming out literally the same week as the presentation. And for it to be 4 minutes, which was a huge chunk of this 25-minute show, I thought that was a weird opener. And then this, while exciting, and the Persona to Switch movement has been huge for years, again, Persona 5's already been in all the headlines this month for coming to other platforms. So, I don't know, just its starting and ending seemed like kind of strange choices for me.
I could be wrong, but I wonder could have been a last minute edit, because the obvious answer would be end with Mario and Rabbids. But I'm like, because of the leak where they're just like, oh, well, there goes that. I doubt
That's
it.
Very possible. I'm surprised Bayonetta 3 didn't show up. I really thought the whole way that it was going to. You can argue, oh, that belongs in a first-party direct, which this was not. This was a partner showcase. Nintendo's publishing Live Alive over here. Literally, Mario is in Mario Rabbids, even though they're not publishing it. But I think that Bayonetta is definitely a game that can fit into either category. So for a game that's supposedly still coming out this year, I thought it was the biggest misser for me today.
Well, I think that's the key word there. They said all these games are coming out this year. And do we know? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Bayonetta wasn't coming out this year.
Yeah.
With as little as we've seen from it, we basically would have had just the one trailer. To the best of my knowledge,
in 2017, and then the re-reveal essentially last September in the direct.
Yeah, so I mean, they're already looking good for this holiday season. Like, they will survive without Bayonetta. We got Splatoon, we got Mario Rabbids, we got Pokemon. You know, I mean, Bayonetta would be overkill in a good way, but if they didn't have it, you know, their sales numbers wouldn't suffer in any way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned their holiday lineup, and I want to go off on a quick aside, is that I wasn't too disappointed that this was just a partner direct, because I do feel like we already know so much of what is to come, like you just listed off. Like, we have a major Nintendo game for every month this fall, along with a few things that still need dates that we don't know where they're going in. Third-party things like Sonic Frontiers still don't have a date. We just got Dragon Quest Treasures, which is now dated for December. You've got Advance Wars floating around. You've got a new Metroid rumor that we're going to talk about in a little bit here. So Nintendo's first-party calendar is pretty good for the rest of the year. So I guess I kind of enjoyed the spotlight on some smaller things that were the big focuses, rather than having to share the stage with Zelda or some other bombshell Nintendo thing that we know is going to be good when it comes out. And Pokemon will do their own thing. Splatoon has to have its own direct. I will stand by that. We need a Splatoon direct in August to tell us more about this game. But otherwise, I didn't think that they really needed it, though I did want it. I want to see what they've got coming up for 2023. But for a mid-of-the-year direct, I thought it was fine that it was just from the park standpoint.
Yeah, honestly, compared to, I preferred it over the Xenoblade direct, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, but were you disappointed after the show that it was just a partner showcase, or were you fine with it, seeing what they had there to show?
I was fine with it because, like, we talked about this offline. Like, we saw new footage of Sonic Frontiers along with other announcements. So, like, for how short it was, we saw a lot of new things that we hadn't seen before, which made it worthwhile in my mind.
Yeah, Sonic Frontiers finally showed off that it's going to have traditional 3D Sonic levels like seen in Generations or Unleashed or Colors. Hopefully not like the one seen in Forces that were like 45 seconds long. But they are in there, which lines up with some leaks that came out months ago at this point. Sonic Frontiers, it's weird. We're huge Sonic fans. Both O'Dell and I love Sonic. But when I put this show together, I almost don't even think of Frontiers. Because in my mind, there's just no way I'm playing it on Switch.
Oh, yeah, not at all.
It is a Nintendo game.
Not at all.
Yeah, but it was there, and I'm glad it's there. We'll see what it looks like. Forces was competent on Switch, but this is a much more ambitious game. This is an open-world 3D action platformer that is a much larger scope than Forces ever was. So we'll definitely have to follow how the game turns out on every platform, but specifically what this thing looks like on Switch, because I'm not convinced that the footage they showed was the Switch version. To me, it looked too good to be the Switch version.
I'm with you on that. I will not contest that.
But what do you think of how Frontiers is turning out in general? Let's go there for a second.
I'm excited actually because so one of the things that they showed off the new zone, open zone, the cyber space zone.
Yeah.
And so one of the things they instantly reminded me of, I remember back when Mirror's Edge first came out, I thought that game was amazing. I loved it. Extremely short, but did what it did extremely well. And then a DLC came out, which was essentially just a giant cityscape playground to do challenges and run around it. And like, that was the best part of the game. Like, the story was fine, but that blew, like, they made the world for, Faye to run around in, and it worked amazingly. And when I see this cyberspace zone, I think of that Mirror's Edge moment of like, this is just a giant space, and now we have it's some type of digital whatever, and this realm is just literally made for Sonic to do cool stuff in. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, it doesn't have to organically make sense. We don't have to worry about like it looking like it's just a space for Sonic to do Sonic things in. And I was looking at like, you can see like highways and other Sonic things, and I was just like, this looks like it could just be really amazing. Like, if there's just like some challenge mode at the end of the game, or is it just secrets and you're just running and doing perfect jumps, leaps, grinds, whatever have you. And then, you got the Green Hill looking zone stage, and then the things.
Oh my gosh.
I know you have your qualms with that, but it looks good. Like, with the Frontiers formula, because one thing I've noticed about Sonic games, even in the trailers, like, you could tell that like you're like, okay, that's on rails, and that the gameplay kind of looks bad. If you played enough Sonic games, you can see it. You know what I'm talking about. But I look at this, I'm like, this seems kind of smooth. Like, a good balance of user control and automatic set pieces, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I think it could be really good. To me, it's going to come down to, is it fun to traverse the open world? Because we've got these 3D levels now that look like 3D Sonic levels, but those are only going to come along so often. Most of the time is still going to be spent in this open world. So just to see how they pull it off. The kind of example I've been saying for how I want this game to feel is like Forza Horizon 5 on Xbox, where you are a car in a world, and it's like, oh, there's a collectible sitting on top of this like rooftop. And to get on this rooftop, you have to start like 2 miles away, build up as much speed as you can, maneuvering through obstacles and roads, and then launch yourself off a ramp and land on this building to get this collectible. I think if Sonic like really played with its world, and it was like, yeah, you need to get to this collectible, you have to have a certain amount of momentum. So it's up to you to figure out how to gain that momentum by starting anywhere on the map you want to get to that point. I think that would be super cool. I don't know if this is quite going to hit that. We know it has like these puzzle challenges where you do have to get from point A to point B as fast as possible, and you just have to figure out the fastest route to do that, which is good. But I just really want there to be these interesting speed puzzles out in the open world, rather than just an open world built for a character like Link or Mario or Kratos that you just drop this unwieldy, speedy hedgehog into.
Yeah, and I feel like this game's in a good position because I'm not trying to say it shouldn't strive to be the best, but I feel like as long as it gets it good enough, like if they figure that missing piece out, then like the world could be open for Sonic. Because so many games, it's like Mario 64 figured 3D out, and then everyone else knew how it was like, oh, this is how you do it. Now we can make great games. So I'm like, if this figures out 3D Sonic, even if the game isn't all that great, then it's a win for everybody.
Yeah, and we have heard Iizuka say that they want this to be the jumping off point for the next decade of Sonic games. So we'll see. Still don't have a date for that one, but it is coming to Switch. A couple other things from this Direct to bring up real quick. Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection announced another compilation of Mega Man games. 10 games, 10 Battle Network games coming. There's a physical version that includes all of them, but digitally it's being sold in 2 parts. It's the same story we've seen them do with the other collections. Any thoughts on Mega Man?
So I actually played, was it Mega Man Legacy? I played this for the GBA. The first one with the grid battle, whichever one has the grid battle style. I don't know if all of them do. Mm-hmm. But that game is so hellishly hard. Like, I've never beat it.
Well, did you play it like when you were younger, or
Okay, it was younger me, but younger me still competent,
uh-huh.
Like
Because sometimes there's those games where you come back and you're like, oh, why couldn't I beat this back then?
I feel like by the time the GBA rolled around, like I had a good, grasp of my skill. The Super Nintendo era, there was some times where like I was like, young me just didn't understand games. Mm-hmm. But GBA era, I'm around 12, 13. I'm peak performance. I got all the time in the world and none of the responsibilities. And I could just never beat that game.
Well, now you have another chance. You have a chance of redemption.
Yeah, I can go jack in. I think that's what they said. Like it had an anime on Jetix here in the States. Okay. And like that was like their little catchphrase.
Yeah, but there's so many Mega Man games on. There's the original Legacy collections. There's the X Legacy collection. There's the ones with like ZX and Zero that are on there too. So there is a ton of Mega Man on Switch, and 10 more games are coming. Harvestella is Rune Factory plus Final Fantasy. It's coming from Square Enix. It's coming on November 4th, and it's about farming and combat. And there's this season that happens kind of in between seasons called the Quietus. It's called the Season of Death, and it can destroy all your crops. So kind of a twist on the traditional kind of a farm sim fantasy formula. O'Dell, tell me your history. Are you at all into Harvest Moon, Stardew Valley, Rune Factory, anything like that?
No, and no. My first legit Voyager into that genre was, Animal Crossing New Horizons, like the rest of the world. But with that said, I have friends that are super into Stardew Valley. I have a friend specifically who counts down the days to Harvest Moon 64 Remake. Like, he is the only person I know who believes that game is coming. Like, just... right. Like, he just believes. But I'm aware of those games. And Rune Factory, ironically, similar to Monster Hunter, people are like, you like Pokemon, you would like this game. I don't know what the connection is there, but I hear that a lot about Rune Factory. And I'm just like, I guess. Also, just a slight aside, when did those games come out? Because I swear it's always like, Rune Factory 2, Rune Factory 6. And I'm like, what happened to 3, 4, and 5?
Well, it's actually been a long wait for 5. 4 was a 3DS game a number of years ago. Now 5 has finally made its way out this year, but it was a disappointment by most accounts. Speaking of Monster Hunter, did you try that demo? Did you try that demo for Rise yet?
I did not. I still have my promise to keep to you of playing the game. The demo is not part of that promise.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I think Harvestella looks really cool. I have dabbled over my life in the Harvest Moon, Stardew Valleys. My sister is super into them, so I have just played a few here and there along the way. But this one looks cool, especially because Rune Factory 5 was so disappointing to so many people. Having a new game from Square Enix that is going to hopefully scratch that itch for people on Switch. And coming so soon, I thought this was a great surprise from the Direct. Something entirely new we didn't know was coming. Something we did know was coming, Dragon Quest Treasures. Square Enix announced at the start of this month that, man, I feel like Square Enix is just... all over Nintendo Directs all the time. They just have so many games on Switch. Dragon Quest Treasures is a spin-off to Dragon Quest XI starring Eric and Mia. Eric is from 11. He was a main party member. And this kind of seems to be the new future for the Dragon Quest Monsters series, which is like their take on Pokemon, where you capture the Dragon Quest monsters, you build a party of them, you train them, and you fight with them. This has Eric and Mia befriending monsters, sending them out for, I think, real-time combat battles. Kind of looks like Dragon Quest Builders gameplay also. And this is coming out on December 9th. I'm super into Dragon Quest. 11 is one of my favorite games of all time. So I'm looking forward to this one. I really didn't like Builders 2, though, for a number of reasons. So I'm curious to see where this one's going to kind of land on the gameplay spectrum. But it's a Switch exclusive, so another big get for Nintendo.
Yeah, man. I just think it makes sense to have, farm, life, battle. I'm just going to call them, they're not cozy games, but they're not super hardcore either, whatever mass genre we want to put them in.
They're chill.
Yeah, they're chill. I like that. It makes sense to put chill games on Switch. Switch is made to play chill games.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of goes back to like what I was talking about with Zelda, like having these these games to plug the gaps. Dragon Quest 11 came out 5 years ago, almost, and Dragon Quest 12 we have a logo and nothing else. So to have a game like this, they've got the Dragon Quest 3 remake coming out at some point, the HD 2D remake, which looks gorgeous from the little we've seen of it. Like, I like having just this franchise care of things continuing to roll out. We're seeing the same with Final Fantasy VII, Crisis Core remake coming to Switch later this year. So I was happy to see Treasures make an appearance. Other announcements: Pac-Man World remake of the PS1 3D platformer, Super Bomberman R2.
Excited, yes.
Wait,
yes,
really?
Yes.
Bomberman R, I feel like launched on the Switch, had no content, and then no one talked about it ever again.
Okay, so here's a fun fact that I've never been tweeted about. I'm a huge Bomberman fan.
Okay.
Huge. Like, there's this Bomberman game that was only for the GameCube where you had to get little like, they're not like Pokemon, but they're like Bomberman familiars. They're called like Bombachus.
Okay, yeah.
And like one lets you jump on bombs, and they give you other little abilities when you equip them to yourself. And I thought that was like the funnest game ever. And like, I don't know, like Bomberman, like competitive combat is like, I think super fun. You know, when you talk about party games, Bomberman is a great party game that no one ever thinks to play, but I promise you, you play that with a group of friends, you'll have a great time. And when they showed the new Castle Defense mode, which I know no one's going to be online to play it, where you're the one Bomberman is setting up the traps and stuff, I was like, this looks like the best game ever.
All right. I did not know we had a Bomberman fan on the board, but good to know. Portal Collection is out now, Portal 1 and 2. That was their big out today game. I've heard it's great. I've heard this is a great way to play Portal 1 and 2.
Really?
Nier Automata is coming to Switch later this year. It's going to run at 1080, 30 FPS docked, and 720, 30 FPS in handheld. And comes with all the DLC and some new costumes for the game. Return to Monkey Island was there, and just a lot more. So, O'Dell, before we move on from Nintendo Direct, final general thoughts on the presentation as a whole, or anything else that you want to spotlight that we didn't get into?
Well, you said Bomberman, which that was excited, but no, nothing substantial to add. If I had to give it a rank, it would probably be like a B+.
I'm there with you. Yeah, I think B+ is fair. I think that we'd all feel a little better about it if Nintendo had been transparent with their plans for this month ahead of time. If they had come out when everyone else was announcing their plans for, and kind of just said, Xenoblade this week, partner showcase the next week, that's it. I think it just would have set expectations, and we probably would have walked away a lot happier, because there was some like, oh, it's a partner showcase. You go into it, there's a lot of good stuff there. It was their best partner showcase yet, because I don't know if you remember the ones in 2020. They were bad. They were really, really bad most of the time. We got some good stuff, like Monster Hunter Rise was revealed at a partner showcase, but overall it was like usually there's like a WWE game that like no one played, was like their showcase game for one of the partner directs. So this redeemed the partner showcase name in my mind.
Yeah, not to insult any games that showed at any partner showcases, but they felt like extreme shovelware. Like, these are games you don't show it, like they just show up on the eShop one day and that's it.
Yeah. And they look up, games like that are valuable. Some people will play them. People are putting hard work into them, but they can't anchor a show like that. I think it's like, to anchor a show, you need that big tentpole game, and then you can fill the smaller things around it. And that's what this did. Persona's a big deal. Monster Hunter wasn't very much new stuff, but it's a big deal. Mario Rabbids is a big deal. And then you have these chunks in between of some smaller stuff that looks really cool. So, good announcement. I hope the next time we hear from them is Splatoon 3, because I'm still not convinced on that game, as you know. But let's talk about Metroid Prime. There's always a new rumor for Metroid Prime. This time it's coming from Jeff Grubb, who is saying that there is a Metroid Prime 1, only one, remaster lined up for release this fall to coincide with the game's 20th anniversary. Metroid Prime originally came out on Friday, November 18th. That is Pokemon's release date, so we'll see if that is when Metroid Prime's coming. And then we got a quote here from Grubb saying, I could say that I've been told pretty definitively that Metroid Prime Remastered is going to be one of Nintendo's big holiday games. In the past, this is something I've heard is in the works. They've had things happening with that game. Now I've told that their plans are to release that game this holiday. I think almost certainly to line up with the 20th anniversary in November. So that's happening, and they need to tell us when that date is. He also said that he thinks the game will feature dual analog controls which is a huge deal for me. We'll talk about that in a second. And gyro aiming to prepare players for new elements in Prime 4. And then the last thing you kind of tacked on here is that the original game, Prime 1, is getting the big remaster treatment. 2 and 3 are getting modest updates and could release separately in the future. So, O'Dell, staying away from whether or not this is true or not, because we don't know anything. This is always swirling in the news. Let's just take this time to talk about what we want from a Metroid Prime remaster. You love this game. I have not played this game. I'll let you go first.
All right, so true to the name remaster, like that will make sense because the ranking in my mind is 1, 3, 2. 2 is not a bad game. It's just not better than the other 2.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm thinking, what would I want out of a fully remastered game? I would really want, like, to push the Switch to its breaking point because that is a gorgeous world. And good thing is, it's still, because I remember I played the trilogy on the Wii, and it still looked pretty good, even by standards. So I'm like, you might not have to push it to, PS5 polygon limits for it to look amazing. Yeah. Considering how old it looks, but I honestly, I know you want to do it, but the controls have never really been bad in that game. So I'm a believer that since the Wii motion controls worked wonderfully in the game, maybe they could work good on the Switch. But honestly, outside of like the graphical overload, I don't have a wish. I'm not trying to sound hokey and be like the game is just that good. What more can you do? But the game is that good. What more can you do besides giving me prettier graphics?
Controls. For me, it is the controls. I know you say that the controls aren't bad, but they're weird. If you're unfamiliar, you don't control the camera with the C-stick, even though the GameCube had a C-stick. Instead, that like controls your visor and what you have equipped at any given moment. And it's more about targeting enemies to aim and strafing and movement with a control stick rather than aiming in the traditional fashion that anyone who's ever played Halo or any other first-person shooter besides Metroid Prime can pick up and instantly understand. And I think if you want Prime 4 to have a chance and you want Prime 1, a remaster, to be the vehicle that starts the marketing train towards Prime 4, you can't release this game with outdated 20-year-old controls before first-person games were really a thing like they are.
Would you take Joy-Con motion controls?
Like Wii Remote and Nunchuck?
Yeah.
No. No. It needs to have traditional stick controls. Move and strafe with the left stick. Look around with the right stick. It has to for me. Otherwise, it's a big mistake to me if they don't do that.
So as you know, I recently got my 64 controller for the Switch, which I am loving. And I've been playing Paper Mario 64 with the Pro controller. And like literally the N64 controller came in and I was like, thank God.
Like, weird, right? It's weird to play N64 games with that controller.
And I'm thinking, I'm like, maybe because I've gotten so used to, Nintendo controller setups to where I'm like, honestly, it's like I grew up on it, but I was like, yeah, it would but if it's a full remaster, I'm just curious, like I'm imagining how the game plays. I'm trying to imagine traditional FPS controls. Mm-hmm. I feel like for that to work, you would almost have to get rid of the lock-on feature.
If it is truly a big remaster treatment, that could be a thing. Because Prime 3, does Prime 3 have lock-on? Because I know that one is...
Well, Prime 3 is basically Wiimote Nunchuck only, so... Yes and no. Like, you can lock on, but you're still free aiming the whole time. Like, your camera would just, kind of just be focused in that direction. Think, a la Skyward Sword, kind of like, you're locking onto your enemy, but that's kind of just for you to focus on that. But if there's stuff to the left or right, they're still going to attack you and,
I just think that Prime 4 is going to be a traditional controlling first-person game. So I think it would just be great to kind of put the whole series in line with... Because Trilogy put them all under motion controls. And so on Wii, right? You play the first two in motion control that originally were from the GameCube. So why not just now that they're on the Switch, just give me a traditional first-person game? You ask, why haven't I played Prime? I have tried for the last 5 years, I feel like the second I finish it, they'll be like, here's the remaster that you want. And I'll be like, why did I just play it? So that's why I've been holding out. I've played the first 3 to 4 hours, and I love the atmosphere. I love the exploration. I do love Metroid. As I love Dread. It's one of my favorite games on Switch. I don't love the controls. That's really what has kept me from finishing that game, knowing that it could be coming to Switch soon. And I've tried it on the Wii version, and I've tried it on the GameCube version, and I just don't like how either feels. So I really hope that they take the chance to fix that.
Well, let me ask you this. Since that's your only qualm, what else do you feel like, since, I'm enamored with love, I will gladly admit that. But what else, what other, okay, so the controls are good. Could they even do anything else to make the game more accessible or just better in your mind?
No, I think the controls are the big thing for me. I think that game largely holds up from what I have experienced. Because I played it last year. After Dread came out, we were on a Metroid spoiler cast together. You told me to play Prime. I booted it up on GameCube and played like 3 hours of it. And I was like, man, I want this game to get a remaster. But really, it's just the controls. A fresh coat of paint and modern controls. I think that game would be awesome to play this fall. And I really hope that happens.
And I hope they do too, because honestly, like, we talked about this before about, sales numbers, Metroid, and to that ad nauseum. And I really feel like if they modernized it with the amount of people who have not played it, like, I can see it easily. Because Dread, it was 6 million copies. I can see Remaster Prime doubling that easily.
I think a little less than 6, but in that ballpark, around 5 million. Yeah, I think so too. First-person games are just more popular. Like, think about that what you will. I think Dread is absolutely worth the $60 price of admission. Others don't. Others don't think 2D games have that same value. Being a first-person shooter, and I know it always calls it first-person adventure, right? But being essentially a first-person exploration-based shooter, I think will really help that game. I think a Prime remaster, $60 would hurt. I think if it truly is getting a big remaster polish, it will be that $60 price point. If these 2 and 3 rumors are true that they're not doing quite as much to those games, I'm curious to see what price those come in at. But if you're really doing one alone, I think it could be big. I think it could be a big, exciting holiday game.
Yeah, I say Prime has enough. It's a beefy enough game to where, with a true remaster, I feel like no one will be insulted by that price.
Yeah.
It's not like a 5-hour experience and you're out.
Yeah. So that is Metroid. We'll have to wait and see if this is just like in a direct later this year or in a Twitter drop, which they've been known to do to announce games. Paper Mario: The Origami King, Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity, both just dropped on Twitter. So I could see a Metroid Prime remake doing something similar. But let's move on to a final topic of the day, which is Fire Emblem Warriors. 3 Hopes is out, and I am playing it. And O'Dell, I was texting you a little bit. This game is awesome. This game is very, very good. I'm very impressed with it so far. And you immediately asked me, oh, let me guess, it's not like other Warriors games. No, it is. It is a Warriors game, and that's the thing. If you do not like the base Musou Warriors combat, you will not like this game, because that is what you are doing most of the time. So if that's a hurdle you can't get over, this game's not for you. But if you're like me, who does really enjoy this combat, as long as there's enough depth around it, this game, you should give it a try. Because it is that basic hack and slash 2-button combo system. Y for light, X for a strong attack combo finisher. Charge up your bar, use your special, waste the entire room, move on to the next. It is very much that. But it is that plus everything you love about Fire Emblem tactical gameplay. What I mean by that? Weapon strengths and weaknesses, right? You have an archer, you can take down flying enemies like they're nothing. You have a party of 8 characters out on the battlefield at one time. You can only control up to 4 of them. The other 4, to command them, you hit plus, it opens up a top-down grid view of the entire battlefield. It looks basically like a Fire Emblem game when you pause, and when you're there, you tell your units what to do. You pick them, you tell them to go fight an enemy that, like, say it's like, there's a mission where it's like, you need to defeat these 5 dragons before they take over your stronghold. And the dragons are spread out across the entire map. If I see that one of the dragons is weak to a lance, and I'm playing a lance user, I'm like, oh, I'll just run over there myself. But then I see someone's weak to an axe. I pause the game, I pick my axe user, I send them over to them, And the game tells me, just like in Fire Emblem, the percent chance that they have to win that fight, right? Like when you pick an enemy on a grid-based battle in Three Houses, it's like 80% chance you win this fight. It does the exact same thing. So it really feels like, more so than Fire Emblem Warriors, more so than Age of Calamity for Zelda, a true combination of these two franchises in a way that is, it just comes together so well, and it's just very satisfying.
I do like how you described that. The whole you control up to 4 units, the other 4 you tell what to do, and they do that. Because I do enjoy Fire Emblem style gameplay. Like, I truly do. And I don't know if I have it in me to give another Warriors game a try. Probably not. But that does sound interesting because I really felt like with Age of Calamity, it was just Warriors with a Zelda skin over it. Nothing truly felt Zelda-y. I didn't feel that mesh of the worlds. It was just like a overlap of one onto the other. So based on what you're saying, that does sound more promising. Because I also got the same speech with Strikers, Persona 5 Strikers, about like, oh, you still get that Persona thing. And I saw it more so than in Zelda. But there was still just something just not there clicking for me. Mm-hmm. But this actually sounds like the care and time was took to not erase the Fire Emblem identity.
Yeah, it even has support conversations, right? In Fire Emblem, if 2 units battle next to each other, you see the little heart icon, and after enough relationship growth, you can go ahead and have a support conversation with those 2 characters, and they can grow from C to B to A, in some games to S, which means that they get married in like Awakening or in Fates. And that's here too. You can pair up characters, they fight together, and then when you're back at base camp, they can have support conversations. And then if you pair them up again in battle, they are more effective. It is just like Fire Emblem, and it's just really awesome. And it just provides so much depth to what I wouldn't call a shallow combat system, but certainly a repetitive combat system, right? I like the combat. I think it's fun to just see your favorite characters from Three Houses pull off these crazy moves. But knowing you're working towards something, you have weapon durability, you have the relationships, you have the order system. Like, there's just a lot going on all the time, and it doesn't get boring. I'm like 10 hours in, and it is just super engaging.
I didn't realize it was that long.
It's about 35 hours per path, and just like Three Houses, there are 3 paths to take. Same houses choice: Golden Deer, Black Eagles, Blue Lions. After a couple chapters of the game, you meet Claude, Edelgard, and Dimitri. You pick your path. You're then with that house. Those classmates represent your playable party. So like, I pick Golden Deer because I like Claude. So I have like Claude and Hilda and Raphael and all those guys right now. But if I beat the game, I can go back and you save your levels, and you can pick a new path and play with all those characters that will probably play pretty differently. So if you play the whole thing, it's like a 100-hour. If you just play one path and call it good, it's about 30 hours, which is what I'm going to do. Play one path and call it a day after that.
Have you ran into any difficulty spikes?
Not yet. I do. So Shez is the main character. He's a new original character for this game. He is very cool. I like him a lot. His gameplay style is really fast, really intense. So I play as him most of the time. So he gets way more levels than the people you're not controlling. So I'm finding that some of my alternate party members, I need to give a little more love and play as a little more, because I'm starting to notice they're getting damaged more and getting close to death. And I'm playing with permadeath on in classic Fire Emblem fashion. If they die, they're gone. So I got to start putting a little more care into them. But no, the difficulty's been pretty solid so far. I'm just playing on normal and classic. There's hard, and I think there's even lunatic also.
Oh, oof. No, thank you. Not in the Fire Emblem game.
Yeah, but I was on the show, I think, was it just last week? Where I said that I think Three Houses is pretty overrated, and I don't really like it that much. I like this game more than Three Houses. It tells the story just as well. All the voice actors from Three Houses are reprising their roles as these characters. The story is interesting. It's a completely alternate history to Three Houses. Like, it's just a totally different telling of like the war between these 3 nations, but it's very good, and I like the gameplay more. I think it's more interesting consistently from mission to mission than it was in Three Houses. So if you liked Three Houses and you can stomach Muso gameplay, you'll love this game. It's It's really good. And performance, I know Chris can't stand that Age of Calamity chugs on Switch. This runs at pretty steady 30 FPS. It is definitely runs better than Age of Calamity.
You know, this might be the next game I try out and don't finish, but I will try it out.
Yeah, I recommend it. It is a very fun time. That is Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, out now on Switch. Check it out. And that is going to do it for our show this week. O'Dell, any final thoughts to share?
I just really hope Metroid's coming. Like, I'm tired of living this lie.
I hope so too. We'll just have to wait and see on that one. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Toadstool Boardroom. I think I just cut out there for a second. You can find the show on Twitter at ToadstoolBR. Email us, toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com. Answer question of the week. You compare one Nintendo franchise and one third-party developer to make a brand new Switch game. What's your pitch? We'll read it next week on the show. Hopefully Chris will be back and he can share his pitch also for a new game. You can find O'Dell on Twitter at
Odell Harmon Jr.
You can find me at Logan J. Plant. You can find Chris at Shrives93. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next week right here in the Toadstool Boardroom.
Bye.